There is so much to this week's Torah portion, which is called Shmini. It begs to be heard, to be listened to be thought about, to be meditated on. While at first glance it sounds and seems and reads very obvious, wait a moment. As with all things with the Torah, there's inevitably more than meets the eye. And so it is as we begin this week's understanding. Moses and the people of Israel dedicate a Mishkan, called a dwelling place for God in the middle of the Jewish people. The word Mishkan is related to the Hebrew word Shekhinah, which is the dwelling aspect of God in our midst. So when we feel the power of God among us, that's the Shekhinah. And when we have it specifically in a location, that is the Mishkan. But of course, we're not talking about any old location. We're talking about a dedicated spot in the camp of Israel as they were going through the wilderness where they would access God and they would feel accessed by God. Now, the building of the Mishkan began on the 23rd of Adar, the month preceding the month that we're in right now, which is called Nisan. And 7 days later, the Mishkan was finally completed. And the 8th day, it was dedicated. That's what gives this week's Torah portion its name, 8. 8 is Shmini. Shmini is the name of the Torah portion. So it's the 8th day of dedication of the dwelling place of God on earth, the Mishkan. But there's yet more to it than that. You see, this also comes after the debacle of the Egel HaZahav, the terrible sin of the golden calf. It was, and it is believed, that the Jewish people were not supposed to have a place where they would place God and come to God, that God's universe, as it were, was their universe. Where could they access or find God? Any place where they would access or find God is where God would be. But instead, because of the golden calf, the people demonstrated that they needed a place that could be designated as God's dwelling place. They were so limited in their vision, they needed to find a place where they would say, this is where God is. Don't we do the same thing today's time by allocating sacred space versus non-sacred space? We call sacred space the synagogue, non-sacred space any other place. And the psalmist asks, where can the glory of God be found? And the Hasidic response is any place where you let him in. But this is not new to our age. It's also thousands of years old in the sense of the temple. The temple was built was also as a place of Mishkan, of a place where God's presence could be felt and found. And of course, the ancient prophets railed against this by thinking, do you think if you do something in secret that God doesn't see? But we digress. Let's go back to the core of the text. Inside of the text, in this word Shmini, is a mirror image of the 8th day of creation. You remember the world was created in the physical world in 6 days. The spiritual world was crafted in 7. The 7th day, of course, being the pinnacle of creation, what we call Shabbat. But the 8th day was the first day. The 8th day was the first day when Adam and Eve and the rest of creation went about their business, having been fully charged with the responsibilities of doing what they were supposed to be doing. So the 8th day, in a sense, is another beginning. And so it is. In this week's Torah portion, that the 8th day, B'Yom HaShmini, is a new beginning. This is a mirror image of what had taken place thousands of years before in the creation of the world. It is the first day of a new beginning, of a new Bereshit. And in that sense, is filled with awe and power and great resonance for the people who lived at that time and for us who get our spiritual power, energy, as we pass through this powerful text. But there's one more thought as well, and perhaps is the most powerful thought of all, at least existentially, that we can always begin again. All it takes for a new start is the realization of where we've been, what we need to put in place so that we don't fall back upon the ways in which we've traveled before, and then have an 8th day, a new start, a new beginning. Shabbat Shalom. May it be so.